What is up, Bat Family? Welcome to another The Batman Discussion Series video. It is that time of month again. It's been like 4.5, nearly 5 weeks, so we're here with another episode. If you don't know somehow what this series is about, we talk about Matt Reeves' Batverse. We talk about details, theories, ideas of what could be happening, just going super in-depth as a very hardcore Batverse community. And I just want to say thank you so much on giving me a massive boost on the previous video. I think it got to like 46k views, which is, you know, amazing for a series that has been going since before the Batman even released, and will be going up until I start sprouting some gray hairs, given, you know, we've got a while till the sequels come out. So thank you for going so hard. You guys go insane, apart from this guy who left this comment. God. Can't wait to dive into today's questions. I've got a bunch of your questions screenshotted from the previous episode. If you go on to enjoy this video, you know what to do. Help me out with that like button. Let's see if we can get this video to match the previous episode. And of course, consider subscribing for more videos just like this. But starting off today, we have Connor Woog, and this is going off what we were discussing last video. As far as the suit upgrade, I think it's a given that Pattinson is always tinkering and experimenting with his gear. It makes sense for the character to improve the suit and give more tactical upgrades like a detective mode or something like that. So just in case you didn't watch my previous episode of the discussion series, you know, occasionally we get asked about the suit here, and I was really trying to go over realistic ways that it could be improved. We were even going off some concept art that's been designed by the amazing Jackson. Shout out to him. And you guys gave a lot of your thoughts. Ultimately, with Connor Wook here, I do agree. We will have the tinkering and the experimentation with his gear. You can see his Batcave is absolutely littered with works in progress, ballistic tests with the armor of his suit, you know, parts of the Batmobile on the side. So, of course, this is something a lot of us are really dead-ass excited for, to see what could happen. But I think my conclusion I gave last time was I look at it more like Bond. He still has the overall look, so I think Robert Pattinson's Batman will have that overall look, but along the way in each Bond film, there's something added to the arsenal, some kind of new flashy thing. Apply it to the Batmobile, apply it to the suit, apply it to gadget upgrades, and I think that could be where we're landing. But while we're still on the subject, Darren here asks, hi Boba, question for your next video. If Reeves gives Batman a new suit, do you think it will be narratively baked into the story as to the reason why Bruce upgrades the suit, just like Nolan did in The Dark Knight? Or do you think that Reeves will skip the origin of a new suit and Bruce is just simply in it at the start of the movie, just like how Reeves skipped showing us the death of the Waynes again? Perhaps there's a small time jump between films to make the upgrade. Keep up the hard work, Boba. Love the series. Thank you so much for watching. So with this one, I mean, I get the point you're making there. He skipped over the Waynes because we've seen that many times before. We don't need a pure origin, or while this movie pertained to his origin. But does that mean we need to skip over other things? I don't think so. So with the suit here, just to kind of nip this one in the bud, I'd like to think that it would be put in narratively. So, example, just from the top of my head, so this might not be perfect, but at the beginning of the movie, as a lot of us have imagined, maybe there's some kind of, I mean, of course there will be, insert ideas of intro here, similar to that of the fight scene with the train gang, the monologue and everything like that, but maybe the suit is getting quite a bit of wear and tear, especially after the events of the first movie. I still wouldn't be surprised if he'd already replaced a couple of things, though, from the end of the first movie, because, I mean, there's literally shotgun blasts in that thing, but when he gets back into the Batcave after a long night out, and, you know, it just reminds me of that shot when Pattinson gets into the Batcave on his bike, takes the helmet off, and you can just tell he's like, you know, maybe exhausted isn't the right word, but it's just like, now there's another day, right? Let's go over the footage. But this time, maybe we get a line from Alfred saying, I think it's time, you know, we give you a couple of upgrades, Master Bruce, or something like that. I think it might not be so heavily concentrated on, but if we do get a somewhat cool upgrade, I do think it should blend in some way just like that. And you don't see the suit straight away after Alfred says that. Bruce is like, I'm already working on it. And maybe the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes of scenes, you know, go to the villain or go to Penguin, or maybe go along the line of Bruce Wayne going up to Wayne Enterprises. Insert ideas here with whatever the second movie's plot could consist of. But when we see Batman again, the first shot when you see him come round the entryway of a door and go through it, and it starts from his boots up. That's when you see what he meant when he said to Alfred in the Batcave, oh, I've been working on it. To what capacity, whether it's subtle or whether it's maybe somewhat consistent with the first armor, of which is my preference, but oh, okay, instead of like the straps being there, symbolic of the blades, they're actually blades now. Maybe the boots are slightly different. Maybe the cowl material is a little bit different, even though I am still always going to maintain and die on this hill that I love the cowl. Maybe the bat emblem is majoritively the same. I love the design of the emblem, but maybe this time it's got larger ears. A lot of people don't actually realize that it has ears that are yellowy gold, but they're just so tiny. So yeah, maybe something like that is a way I think it could fit into the actual narrative of the plot. That would be super cool. And that would all be done within like the first 15 to 25 minutes of the movie. Like transition from the old suit that was kind of falling apart on the night out of the opening monologue to then getting the new suit. Now, steering directions a little bit, Silly Guy Mandude says, I'd love to see Harley be the protagonist of the Arkham series. It could show her slow descent into madness as she learns more about the patients in Arkham. This has got 57 upvotes, so, you know, there's quite a few people out there who saw that and like, damn. I don't know about, like, so it's not that the foundation of your idea isn't something I would like to see in one way, shape, or form, but when I adjust my fan goggles or like try and dial into the perspective of what I can really realistically see happening, I really don't know. And I think maybe we've discussed this a long while ago, what the realistic chances of Harley being involved in the Arkham series are. I'm not saying that she doesn't exist in this universe. You know, that question could be applied to a lot of people like Lucius Fox or Harvey Bullock and lots of other people. Like, do they exist? I'm sure they do. But will we see Harleen Quinzel? I don't know, especially when you consider that the DCEU to potentially DCU, with Margot Robbie likely staying on as a Harley, now in Joker Folia Deux with Joaquin Phoenix, the sequel to Joker, as Lady Gaga as Harley. I do think no matter what, when we explore the continuation of stories that come back to Joker, kind of quoting Matt Reeves there, he says, oh, you know, perhaps there's some stories that will come back to Joker in the Arkham space. I don't know if that will be accompanied by Harley. I do think if we get Joker, whether it's in the ramp up to a third movie, full-on appearance, and we'll be talking a bit more about that in a bit, because I think there's a few screenshots I've got here diving into that. I know lots of people out there will be listening to this right now and thinking, why not? Like, why not? You know, Harley could be easily implemented into the Arkham series. But I think it's more of a question of when and if Reeves does go full send into Joker at some point down the line, would he actually implement Harley? And my gut is telling me I just don't know. I don't take that for a fact because it's just my speculation and my gut telling me that. I think she's being leaned on in other stories and in other takes. And I do think that even though he can and is able to do his own iteration and take on that character to accompany Barry Keoghan's Joker, I think this Joker's quite early on that maybe he's going to end up meeting Harley in headcanon here, in the Batverse, some way down the line. Like, this Joker is so early on that he hasn't even titled or called himself or crowned himself as the Joker, as Matt Reeves says. So I think Harley will be, you know, his therapist at some point, arguably according to traditionalist canon, but maybe that's something that we might not see in this story so early on. And it's the same thing with if we don't get a Robin. This is only if. It doesn't mean that Robert Pattinson's Batman won't get a Robin. And before anyone says that, I know people like to point out that Batman often gets Dick Grayson as a Robin in Batman Year 3, and Pattinson clearly isn't so far away from that. But as I always say, adaptations aren't copy and paste. So back to the main point, if we don't get a Robin by the third movie, it may have just been another thing in where Reeves didn't want to tackle that. But even he might say, well, that doesn't technically rule out that in a future continuation, headcanon-wise, Pattinson's Batman, so long as he doesn't die at the end of the third movie, please don't do that. It doesn't mean he wouldn't go on to get a Robin. It's just we didn't, or that wasn't my interest to explore that in this story or at this part of Batman's life in this trilogy. And yeah, same with Harley. I could be wrong, though. Like, clip this, and in 3 to 4 years' time, we could find out that Reeves does introduce someone like that, and Joker manipulates her into getting out of Arkham. And while we're on the Arkham subject, here we have Noah GH6LH saying, I think it would be really cool if the Arkham series was an anthology told from the perspective of guards, orderlies, doctors, and janitors. Eventually, it would come together to form this bigger picture that illustrates the institution's corruption and maybe even the inmates' plan to escape. And we have Rob here saying that sounds amazing. This is literally, I don't know if you watched my video, I'm not saying you didn't think of this yourself as well, but I made a video about this ages ago now saying borderline exactly what you said here. So I have no idea if you watched my video, but just to plug my video, I made one titled something like how I think the Arkham series will work. I'll leave the thumbnail on screen and I'll put a card above if you want to check that out. But this was exactly my idea. I'm not saying this is how the Arkham series is going to go, but I do think an interesting way to approach it would be, yes, an anthology episode-to-episode thing where you get the perspective of the haunted house that is Arkham through the different eyes of workers there, such as Noah says here, guards, orderlies, doctors, janitors, you have therapists, etc., even inmates. And at a certain point, you realize that all of those different storylines converge. Alongside each episode, you get a little bit of a clue of the overarching plot. But all of those storylines converge to what could be, you know, what Joker is cooking up or what the real kind of rot is in Arkham, whether that's the abuse of someone like Hugo Strange at the top. Like, you can go so deep with that. But initially, the series, as the episodes unfold, feel kind of disconnected. Like, you can tell it's still set at the same time, but the anthology-esque part truly comes in from the different perspectives of the characters that you pick up with, although there are those links. And where through the experience of each part of the episode, it's like they each have a jigsaw puzzle, and then by the 6th to 8th episode, because it would be like a limited series, maybe 8 episodes, by the 7th or 8th episode, all of those jigsaw puzzles from all of those different perspectives we've seen come together and paint that clear picture. And it all builds up to this precipice of a moment that's been brewed this whole time through apprehension, tension, clues, and what the audience have been just so subtly teased with. And whether that's, you know, culminated into this Joker thing or the breakout or something else, that is like the vision I've had since day one. And I'm not projecting that truly into my hype for the Arkham series because, again, I never advise going into movies or anything with expectations, because quite often people, whether they realize it or not, might not like the overall product when it comes out if it doesn't match their theories or their hype. So if it didn't go anything like that, I wouldn't be bothered at all. But that is something that is still flaring my passion for an idea of it. But regardless, I'm so excited for the Arkham series, and I really hope that it is going to be fine post-Riot Strike. And the only reason I say that, by the way, is because we even have like Neil Gaiman for the Sandman, for example, saying, well, hopefully it starts or resumes shooting after the strike is over, because it already started shooting. And he's even saying that, sure, it will probably be fine, but you never know. They might be, the studios and streamers might cherry pick what they truly want to pour their money into with the repercussions that the strike might have. So another example of this is Amazon, despite renewing, and this is really annoying, but this is a perfect example, despite renewing The Peripheral for Season 2, they've now reversed that decision and it's no longer going forward. So you never know. We know for a fact that the Arkham series was still cooking. We actually had an update, I think, towards the end of last year. I think it was around November, and here you can see on the headline, Arkham Asylum HBO Max series taps the Staircase creator Antonio Campos as new showrunner. So he is not only showrunning it, but he will be going on to direct it as well. So it is still in development, and I know I've gone off on this whole tangent, but I just wanted to put it out there that, you know, the Arkham series, as of towards the end of last year, was still, you know, in development. And to anyone says, well, why haven't we heard an update in ages then? Well, I still wouldn't have expected after this story to hear anything major, because, you know, around November last year, update, and then you go into the new year, they're still developing the show. It wouldn't be shooting anytime soon. They're still planning it. But then, lo and behold, in May, that's when the Riot Strike began. And here we are, 100 and something days into it. So, you know, time is ticking on now. You know, time flies by. The actors then got involved in July, so it would be completely frozen right now, and has been since May. And yeah, there wouldn't have been any major updates to say before May when it was in development anyway. So yeah, hope it still gets made. So much potential with this one. So much potential. And with how Warner Brothers, from what we understand, are very happy with Matt Reeves and his plans for the Batverse, I do, regardless, have a lot of faith that they wouldn't abandon these plans, because, you know, the Batverse so far with the first movie has been successful. A lot of people are buzzed to see the next one. So yeah, we're gonna have to wait and see. So Steve Osborne 7224 says, the Batman was such a truly unique movie. What an amazing take. Year 2, violent, full-time Batman, and still some people can't appreciate or understand what they watched. They just say it's boring, or Pattinson sucked as Bruce. I know, right? Like, that's why I put that comment towards the beginning of this video, because you do get at least 2 or 3 or 4 people saying that each discussion series video. And, you know, different strokes for different folks at the end of the day. I think as a Batman fan, I do find it really hard to reconcile with the idea that people go to that length of saying that it was boring, like outright boring, and then like Robert Pattinson himself sucked. And I really don't, you know, sure, there's going to be a lot of trolls out there who are like, die hard, hashtag make the Batfleck movie, and they'll just be ignorant to anything else. People do have their preferences, and sometimes that is so exclusive that they refuse to accept anything else, or even try and find the enjoyment in that other people see, or that you should be open to as a fan. You should like multiple iterations of the character. I like Batfleck, I like Pattinson. I may have a preference, but looking through the lens of like, legit, I find it so boring. Pattinson sucked. What? Really? The only thing I can understand, maybe some people just might like the formula of typical comic book superhero movies, in where the pacing is a bit more all over the place, going everywhere. The Batman takes more of a, I would say, cinema approach to give you a proper... I'm not saying comic book movies aren't proper movies, but I think most people here can distinguish the difference between Todd Phillips' Joker or the Batman, the clear different approach that these directors take with these movies, in where, yeah, for example, with the Batman, the pacing is a lot more slow. You're building up to something. It's a mystery. You're finding the killer. You're doing a lot of investigative Batman. So it's just a more slow-cooking story, and I guess for some people... it's like the Star Wars analogy, and I truly do believe this is a thing. It's like those who absolutely despise Andor. Like, fair enough, if one of you right now are like, it's just not really my thing. That's not really what I'm on about. But I'm talking truly the somewhat brain or approach to things, in where if there's no swoosh swoosh lightsaber force lightning in Star Wars, and the story is told, and I think Andor is a perfect example here, in a really decent way, with really good writing that separates itself from typical approaches to storytelling in a lot of spectacle stuff today, then it's just deemed as boring. It's like, oh, there's no swoosh swoosh lightsaber stuff, so I can't, I don't want to go on this journey with this character. No, there's not enough action. I need to see the grapple hook fire every 3 minutes. Some people just can't do that. So I think that's where it comes to there. As for Pattinson sucking as Bruce, I don't get that. Robert Pattinson's an amazing actor, and maybe you just don't like the direction for this Bruce, but that's one thing that drives me up the wall, is when people say it's not accurate, or why would they go this direction? And if anything, it's insanely accurate. Bruce Wayne, as a young man, going into Batman year 1, year 2, and this Batman is in year 2. 1 year, 6 months in, so yes, that is year 2, but that's still so early on that he is not grown, and I think it's such a natural, organic way to depict this character, in where he is so obsessed with his Gotham Project mission that he is just going full send into it. Now, with his growth into Batman, and as the months and the years unfold, his horizons will broaden, they will brighten, he will become more experienced, his mindset won't be so close-minded, and that is already something that got demonstrated in the movie, from the whole ending monologue with regards to vengeance to hope, and I think him realizing, especially with the natural theme probably of the next movie, going into a bit more of duality, how he needs to get out there a bit more after his conversations with Bella Real and seeing what's happened to this. There's so many it's just such natural character development that I don't understand how people fail to see that. And what I find more ironically hilarious here is that they're meant to be such big Batman fans, but they don't understand how this is actually really ingrained in Bruce Wayne that early on. Even if you look at super old Batman stories, Bruce has been really not the most perfect guy. Even when it comes to Robins, he learns major lessons with regards to them. I'm just thinking if we saw a Robin and people saw Bruce learn some hard lessons there with the dynamic he has with Dick Grayson, would they think, oh, that's not the way he would act? When it's just like, yes, it is, and that's how things grow for Bruce, so he does better with the future generations of Robin that he gets. And even then, things still go awry a little bit. Bruce isn't perfect, and if anything, with how bull-headed Batman or Bruce Wayne can be behind the scenes in the cave, it makes so much sense that he starts off in such a place in where he is bull-headed into just one mission, and people like Alfred need to have a go at him in the Batcave. He needs to almost lose Alfred to kind of realize that there is more than just throwing myself over the bridge into Batmanhood and I don't care about anything else. And yeah, sure, that is his main drive, but there is a bit more to life, and I'm starting to see that a bit more. Oh, I care about Selina. Oh, Alfred almost died. I've just been faced with a fear that I never thought I'd feel again. I don't get how people just don't understand this. And coming back to the main point, Robert Pattinson portrayed what was written for him, and he did it bloody well. So maybe you just don't like Batman. I don't know. Not you, Steve-O, but like those who are just saying like sucked, was arse, and I don't know, all of those comments, because you have to think some of them aren't trolls and they're actually like, nah, what is this? And they're just lacking so much insight. And I just hope that they come to their senses with regards to how wrong they are. And I mean that in the most respectful way. I'm not saying you can't dislike the Batman, but what I'm saying with regards to how wrong some people might be is that to invalidate the very achievement and accurate portrayal that Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson in conjunction gave you in the Batman would just be completely incorrect. So you might not like it. You might prefer seeing a Batman story in where he's at the point of where he's at in the Snyderverse. I don't know, but you can't tell me that the hammer doesn't hit the freaking nail on the head when it comes to portraying Batman in terms of quintessentially at this point in his life, specifically this point. Up next is from Anarchy72, and I really hope we see the Court of Owls in either the DCU or the Reeves films. I'd love to see how Pattinson would deal with the corruption of Gotham going even deeper than Falcone and the Penguin. Love the discussion videos, Boba. You're doing a great job of keeping the hype alive. Thank you, my friend. I try. The Court of Owls is something we get into every now and again. And I'm just going to say, with what you said, first of all, Court of Owls in either the DCU or Reeves films. I think if I had to guess, people would say that they prefer it in Matt Reeves's Batman. But the thing is, I'm not saying it wouldn't be amazing. In terms of concept, Batman, like Robert Pattinson's face, this continuity, this canon, stumbling across a corruption beyond the corruption in the first movie that goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into this frickin' Shadow Council level of elite. None of us disagree that the concept would be amazing, but would Reeves realistically approach another storyline that heavily surrounds corruption? I don't necessarily think he will. When there's only a limited amount of mainline story movies left, and what we have to take into account is that the first movie already leaned into corruption to the extent of where we had a man, the Riddler, unmask the cesspool that is this city, unmask the corruption of the main pillars in somewhat of a Court of Owls way. Like you had the DA, you could argue, as a member of the Court of Owls, you had the police commissioner, you had the mayor, you had this person. Everyone was in on this corruption. Now, obviously, it wasn't Court of Owls, and Court of Owls would be a lot more like Shadow Council-y, if you know what I mean. It would include some of these members, of course, but my point is it would be even grander, which is why people, I think, want this so much more. But my main talking point there is, would he do another movie in where after the first movie you've had corruption unmasked, you had the main pillars of Gotham from the district attorney to the mayor to the police commissioner and whatnot, actually a part of that corruption, would you then in the second movie be like, but now there's this person, and Bruce Wayne has to find out about that? I just don't think so. I think when we think, and this isn't to insult anyone, I just really do mean this, if you think for more than a few minutes about it, it just makes you think, maybe as cool as that idea would be, are we going to spend 2/3 of the trilogy going over unmasking corrupt organizations or figures, if that makes sense? Where I think what Reeves will realistically do is, with only 2 movies left, sure, we're getting spin-off shows, but this is a trilogy. I know people just still say to me like, oh no, it's not a trilogy, why wouldn't it be 5 or 6 movies? Because he said it's a trilogy before. Anyway, if you only have 2 left, you would maybe want to explore Batman stories which are involved with other villains or other big, or loosely inspired by other big events or groups or whatever, right? Are you really going to dive back into corruption? I'm not saying corruption won't always be almost a character in of itself in these movies, because this is Gotham City. After all, I think Matt Reeves has even spoken about before when it came to press for the Batman, with the idea of even in the real world, he doesn't ever think that there will be a city that doesn't have some kind of semblance of corruption. So with Gotham, you're always going to have that. Like, even though we've got a new mayor, Bella Real, who's going to try and rebuild their institutions to the best of their ability. We're going to get a new DA who's very well-intentioned. Hopefully that's Harvey Dent, who's very well-intentioned at the beginning anyway. We're going to get a new police commissioner. But you're still going to have, like, cops who are feeding Penguin information, this, that, and the other. So it will always be present and felt throughout the trilogy. And look, I will fully admit that I was wrong if the Court of Owls pop up in the second or third movie. And I do want to repeat one more time, if that did get announced, I would be like super hyped for it, all the same. I'm just really trying to realistically put myself in the mind of Matt Reeves, and I think, I'm not saying this is the villain, but the second movie would be exploring a different character, like whether that's Hush, or a combination of Hush and someone else, or Penguin from the limited Penguin series getting to a point of Kingpin status, and he's, working in collaboration with some kind of plot that is, unforeseen to us right now. And then in the third movie, maybe Riddler and Joker break out, and they're lending into a more of a rogues gallery, Arkham breakout kind of crazy thing that Batman has to deal with. Those are just crappy examples from the top of my head, but I'm just saying I think he would dedicate his time to something like that, because I do, no matter what, think that the reviews, as much as people may love that story, imagine what the reviews would say. It's like, okay, guys, we're revisiting corruption again. Now, it was very cool, but here, Bruce Wayne went on a journey, and sure, he may be unmasking it himself, and it might not be the Riddler this time, but actually this person was a part of the court, and he followed that trail. There's Talons. People are getting assassinated around the city. The Talons came for their head, and it would be cool, but it would feel not repetitive, because obviously it doesn't really mirror what the Riddler did exactly, but there would be a theme or some kind of thing being repeated there, and I'll tell you what that is. The main focal point being corruption, and I think we're going to go somewhere else in the next movie. I totally get the ideas for it, as you say yourself, like the corruption going even deeper than Falcone and Penguin. I know people like to, and I think I've said this before, lean on the lines of what Gil Colson said. It's like, you don't understand, it's the whole goddamn system. But my explanation for that is he genuinely meant who he was, protecting, Falcone. He had control of the whole goddamn system, because it was. He had everyone in his pocket. The mayor, the commissioner, like it went everywhere. So that doesn't refer to the Court of Owls. It refers to what was actually in the plot of the movie. Or, when Falcone, died, people were reading into, I'm going to take all the secrets to my grave. Or before he died, he said that. And people were like, oh, that's because he's a member of the court. And it's just like, well, not really. He could be referring to a number of things. I hope people see where I'm coming from there. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I know I repeat myself quite a bit, but I felt like I really needed to lay it down thick as to why, if you're a director and you've already explored the theme of corruption very heavily, because that was so pivotal and focal in the first movie's plot, with the pillars of Gotham City being corrupt, as to why he wouldn't really repeat that, even if it was with a more grander corruption story. And you only have 2 movies left to really do what you want to do with other Batman characters that don't necessarily involve corruption. Nova Film Company says, I think in the filmmaking / script writing terms, since the Riddler was thoroughly explored in the first film, I'd predict that the Riddler could be a fun introductory sequence in the sequel, like the Scarecrow was in The Dark Knight. For example, the Riddler has gotten out, committed a series of crimes, and we see Batman begin the movie in a Bond-esque sequence catching the Riddler again. Now, what I love with what you said there is the latter, always imagining what the opening thing for the Batman movies will be. We've got such a legendary, if not my favorite, Batman opening to any movie ever. What will they do? And they're going to keep their pattern up. No matter what, they're going to keep opening them like that, I think, and doing the ending monologue. So I love the idea of a chase scene sequence at the beginning of the second movie. Now, I don't know if I agree with the approach to, like what we had with Cillian Murphy's Scarecrow and Christian Bale's Batman with Riddler getting out. Just because I am one of those people, I'm not saying this will be the plot of the final two movies. Who knows? I do think they are leading up to something, but would they really spring Riddler free with the opening of the movie already, and he's already out there, and Batman puts him away? I don't know, because that would mean that Barry Keoghan's Joker would be out there as well and unaccounted for. But maybe that's a part of the grand design here with what you're pitching. Maybe we don't see him fully again until the third movie, and this is just me expanding on your idea here. So maybe Riddler does get, apprehended, but maybe what could be cool about this is that he's kind of giggling. Like, it almost, maybe it was a part of the plan. Him committing a series of crimes, and giggling away was a part of a deliberate distraction plan, so Batman could put all of his attention to him. Meanwhile, with Joker, he's out there getting more, dissolved into Gotham City. And I don't know, maybe as a going back to Arkham Asylum, Edward Nashton is completely okay with going back to Arkham because he knows him being apprehended, him giving a distraction this whole time, even though maybe he doesn't quite realize that the Joker completely manipulated and used him here. But maybe he is okay with that. I don't know, because it all serves for the greater plan that Joker and him were communicating about within Arkham Asylum, when he said that Gotham loves a comeback story. They're clearly in cahoots together, and maybe he reassured Riddler that, don't worry, once you get put away again by Batman, when I'm all ready and good to go, I'll get you out again. And maybe, who knows, he could be true to his word. Maybe not, because he could have manipulated him, because Joker can easily get in your head, even if it is someone as intelligent as the Riddler. We already saw that manipulation happening in that conversation with how happy Riddler was to even have a friend, and he's getting all giggly about the idea of a comeback story, right? But as I was saying, if Joker wasn't being used until the third movie and he's out there in the wind, you could have like an end credit scene teasing what he was really up to, paying off with whatever Riddler was connivingly teasing to Batman as he was getting put back into Arkham. Something like, oh man, Batman, you just wait. He's very excited to dance with you again. And Batman would be like, what do you know? Like, what's coming? And he's just going to keep laughing or something like that. Now, this is kind of cliche and tropey with what I'm saying now. I do realize that. I'm saying this all from the top of my head. But that could be a way, if we entertained Nova Film Company's idea here of if Riddler was already out as the opening sequence of the Batman Part 2 picks up. Now, I don't know if it will go down that way, because I do maybe think that Riddler and Joker could break out for the third movie. Maybe it is an end of the second movie thing, rather than Riddler already being out at the beginning of the second movie. But I don't mind the idea here, because it could lead to a really cool opening scene. It clearly really sets up something for the future that they don't remotely have to really get back into in the main plot of the second movie, but maybe revisit again at the end. But one thing I do think about that idea is that maybe it's just too much of a huge plot tease to do before you even get into the main plot of whatever the second movie is. It feels like it's almost not stealing the thunder, but teeing up Joker at the beginning through Riddler going back and just teasing Batman, saying, oh, well, if only you knew, he's still out there. I don't know. Maybe you guys can expand on my rambling theories there. But overall, if it doesn't go somewhere like that, I don't know what releasing the Riddler like that would do. Or even just looking at your original comment here. If Riddler is out, that means Joker is out. So what is going on with that? So that's why I felt like I couldn't really help but entertain that line of thinking. I think maybe what most people would opt for is Riddler not being taken away so easily, and we just have the pure combined intellect of Joker and Riddler, maybe in the third movie, going up against Batman, And maybe not just Riddler getting deliberately caught and distracting Batman from Joker having his time to escape and really cement himself somewhere in Gotham. But maybe if you like that idea as well, expand on it. But I do love entertaining ideas like this. So up next is from Jalen Jaden9305 saying, "Hey Boba, been tuning into your Batman discussion series every video. The anticipation for the sequel is killing me. Thank you, man. I have a theory for the Batman Part 2 where Hugo Strange is manipulating Thomas Elliot into becoming an imposter Batman. Inspiration from Batman Prey and The Imposter. This could also differentiate Hush from the Riddler since they were alike in the first film, and while Hush is the imposter Batman, Clayface could be an imposter Bruce Wayne, while you have Hugo Strange delving into the mind of Batman and Bruce from his strange mind." So what I really like about this is I love Batman the Imposter, and one thing that people do say is that, could we really ever have Hush in a future Batverse movie? Because, there were elements used with, Riddler in a way that would feel somewhat samey. If Reeves was to somehow use Hush, it would be still innovative, right? It would play on the character, but in the same way that Jalen is saying here, I love the combination of Batman imposter in terms of imagining, like, Robert Pattinson's Batman. After the events of the first movie, Bruce Wayne may, we've talked about that enough with regards to how after the Riddler exposing video, a lot of people might not like him, or he might have to do some kind of family image repairing there. But Batman, rather, on the news, is being seen as more of a symbol of hope. If in the future movie they actually did somehow utilize, funnily enough, the co-writer of the Batman 2 story, the Batman Imposter, and how there was someone out there trying to ruin Batman's name by killing people, like literally doing things without giving too much away from the Imposter comic if you haven't read it already. I think what I'm most in love with here is that it would be pretty damn awesome since the Batman does have a reputation in Gotham. Even in year one, you saw the newspaper clippings from the Riddler, but now more than ever, if there was somewhat of a Batman imposter type thing going on. I always think that's something very fascinating to lean into, and it, definitely does have something to do with the theme of identity and what they can get into there. I'm not saying it should be the next movie's plot, but I do think it's a really cool idea, and even if we never saw something like this in the movies, it's something in my head canon. If Robert Pattinson's Bruce carried on being Batman and there was no Dark Knight Rises type ending, I could easily imagine a Batman imposter situation playing out at some point in the future. And yeah, if he teamed up with a villain like Clayface, who was also doing the Bruce Wayne side of things, it could get pretty nuts. So Cable8530 says, "That's one thing I'm afraid of. What if somebody isn't able to have Max, and if everything in The Penguin is so connected to the second film, then everyone in the theater could be confused." So I totally get what you're saying, but I think these limited series, all while it's going to be a weird argument I make here, everything in The Penguin will be very relevant to what could be playing into the Batman Part 2, especially with what we can assume to be Oz's elevated position, with him coming out on top as Kingpin of Gotham City. That would be, a pretty transformative arc to pay attention to if you watch the series, right? All 8 episodes, 1 hour-ish episodes of the limited series. But if you don't watch it, I don't think you're going to be confused. I think if you go into the Batman Part 2, I think, sure, if you watch the series, there'll be a lot of kind of nuance and context there for the hardships and the journey that Oz went on and fumbled his way into becoming Kingpin. That will be very entertaining to watch happen and will get very mobstery and, really, really cool. There'll be so much context there. But all it takes is, and I do think, if the beginning of the first movie opened up with something like this, is an opening monologue saying Oz is now ascended to Kingpin position power. In the vacuum of power that Carmine Falcone left behind, everyone, this isn't how the lines would be, obviously, but everyone is following him now, la-di-da-da, right? Something like that is very easily addressed, so I don't think people would be confused, but that's not to say that you shouldn't watch the series, but if you can't watch the series, and you just don't want to, fair enough. But I don't think it will be available to just Max. For example, if you live in the UK, I bet it will be available through Now, which is like a Sky streaming service, or was formerly known as Now TV. Long story short, it's not required watching, it's recommended watching. It's like how we knew that Rebels stole the Death Star plans to blow up the Death Star. You can watch Andor to see how that played out, but if you don't, you still get the context in the movies. And there's probably better examples than that, but you get the idea. Oppenheimer6321 says, my dream for the last movie is to be set entirely in Arkham, like a serious house on a serious Earth. Batman trapped in Arkham along with the villains he fought throughout the trilogy and spin-offs. I would love that too. Now, you know, this goes back to the Arkham talk of what we were saying earlier, but like, we still truly don't know. One popular fan theory, again, is like, okay, that plan that Joker and Riddler were teasing could, you know, come to fruition in the third movie. But what if things get so crazy, or like, you know, if this is fleshed out even more in the Arkham series, who knows what the plans is there, if that really does continue from that conversation Riddler and Joker had at the end. But it culminates in the third movie, and I know people would also say, this sounds like the Batfleck movie, but regardless, that would be an absolute madhouse of a third movie. I can't lie. I'm not saying this would be it, but in complete fangoggles right now, I have to say I am always very taken with an idea like this, especially with the mood and the way that Reeves chose to just portray his grungy Gotham, his Arkham Asylum. The whole aesthetic is amazing, and imagining things having ramped up to a point like that, where you really do have Batman in a whole... You know, it's, you know, like Dead Space almost. I don't know how many of you guys have played that game, but you have the main character, Isaac, overwhelmed by these necromorphs, these monsters. Now, obviously, this may sound like an odd comparison, but it just shows you how you'll have one man going throughout there, and every now and again, you come across somebody who's still alive in that game, but then they're just getting taken out, and you have Batman walking through, and there's someone like, please, please help me. It would really appeal to the horror kind of aspects that they sometimes pull off, the thrillery vibes with the Batman. And can you imagine Batman in there, like, dealing with all of that playing out, how some of these scenes can get so desperate. Like, he's used all of his gadgets, he's truly just down to his suit. You know, we've seen some of this as well, like in the Court of Owls comics when he's like in the maze, or of course there's Batman Arkham Asylum, the game, but I do feel like if we had Batman Arkham Asylum, the game, in Matt Reeves' iteration, it would be so much more thrillery than the way, for example, Mark Hamill's Joker and all the things we see in that game and how that plays out. I'm not saying that game isn't great. I'm just truly imagining it through the Batman world's lens. My God, I do have a feeling that we're going to get a semblance of something like this. If it's not a whole movie, okay, but like, I do feel like something like this, with that kind of scenario, even if it's not in Arkham, but just some kind of crazy house situation where Batman's going through the trials and tribulations, barely putting one foot in front of the other, will have to happen at some point in this Batverse. But anyway, guys, that is the end of today's Batman discussion series video, so I'd love to know, as always, your thoughts on everything we discussed down in the comments below. As always, I read every single one of them. If you want to support this channel, I would really just appreciate a like. Consider hitting the subscribe button. You might think you subscribed already because I keep popping up in your recommended, but just double check to see if you are. I get a lot of comments saying, oh, I thought I was, but I wasn't. Anyway, guys, until next time, thank you so much for watching. As always, I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. I'll see you, fellow Bat family, in the next video. Goodbye.